right, so I'll hand it off to Annalisa and we'll get started.
Awesome. Thanks,
Thank you.
Falani. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our annual training webinars. This is our second webinar of this series, and we will be focusing on all things NICU Data Center. So thanks for joining us. Next slide, please. First, we have our webinar logistics. So all attendees will be muted upon entry. So please use the Q&A function, and we will do our best to answer your questions either during the presentation or at the end. We'll have time allotted for more discussion. We welcome your feedback and recommendations for improving future webinars. So thanks in advance for any feedback you share in our post-webinar survey. We will be sharing the slides and webinar recording after the webinar. These will be posted on our CPQCC website, and our first webinar, Intro to CPQCC, has already been posted. So be sure to check it out if you weren't able to attend the live session. If you're currently listening to this webinar in a conference room or in some other team format, please create a sign-in sheet and send it to contact.micpop@stanford.edu to be eligible for our contact hours. These contact hours are provided through the Mid-Coastal California Perinatal Outreach Program, and they've been approved for up to 1.5 contact hours. So to be eligible for these hours, please remain on the webinar the entire time and please complete the post-webinar survey. This survey will be available immediately following the webinar and is open to everyone regardless of the need for hours. Next slide. My name is Annalisa Watson. I'm one of the program managers of the NICU Data Center at CPQCC. And in speaker order, I'm joined by Falani Davis, our NICU Data Center Program Manager lead. We also have Jessica Liu, one of our CPQCC team biostatisticians. And finally, Dr. Henry Lee, the medical director of the Jacobs Medical Center NICU at UC San Diego. Next slide. Our agenda for the webinar is as follows, and as a heads up, we will be diving into NICU data and reports during most of our presentation today. So you may want to log into both cpqccdata.org and cpqccreport.org to pull up your NICU's data so you can follow along. If you're trying to log in and you realize you're inactive, you can let us know via help desk, and I'll try to reinstate accounts as quickly as possible when I'm not presenting. So you can fill out a help desk ticket, or you can even comment in the Q&A chat on this webinar so we can try to reinstate your access. It's also possible that your account has been deleted or you don't have access for other reasons. So if that's the case, we won't be able to reinstate you during the webinar, but we can certainly set you up after. Okay, so let's get started. First, we have NICU Data Center and review of data finalization. Next slide. And next slide. Thank you. So we just introduced ourselves as the program managers. We serve as your data support system and provide technical assistance via our help desk. Next slide. And we also have our amazing back-end team led by Beata Danielson, who built the NICU and reports databases from the ground up. She works very closely with us, and both she and our amazing biostats team work to ensure your data is secure and ready to use for internal QI and benchmarking and for all CPQCC projects. Next slide. And of course, we don't have our data without all of you. We showed this slide in our Intro to CPQCC webinar. This shows the full composition of our membership. We currently have about 80% of California NICUs participating in CPQCC, and we show our membership broken down by both CCS level and perinatal region. Next slide. Okay, so we introduced the basics of our databases in our webinar 2 weeks ago. We'll be going over the overview a little bit today and also diving in more deeply. So first we have our zoom into this year's data finalization in which we closed out data for 2024. Next slide. Okay, but before we have to show our production schedule, for those who don't know, data finalization is the process of ensuring that all data is submitted to CPQCC's NICU databases, that it's complete and accurate for every infant born in a given year. This is a shared responsibility between the NICU Data Center team and each member NICU. So every year from January through June, NICUs close out the prior birth year's data by completing all the necessary data collection forms and verifying data accuracy. Our production schedule remains fairly consistent every year, and we have key deadlines on February 1st, April 1st, June 1st, and June 7th, shown here in these orange columns. You'll also see references to our data management awards and annual reports. Both of these and the key deadlines are covered in our data finalization guidelines manual, which is updated annually and available soon, in addition to our 2026 data entry material. So please keep an eye out for an announcement when those materials are available. Next slide, please. Another key part of our data production schedule is this quarterly closeout deadlines and reports. These check-ins help teams stay engaged and aware of their data status throughout the year. They ensure you're ready for a majority of the data finalization deadlines once those come up. And there's no penalties for these deadlines, but they're strongly recommended. These help you stay on top of data entry and make the most out of real-time reports available on our NICU reports website. Next slide. And while we're on the topic of deadlines, we shared this in our last webinar as well, but a quick reminder that our membership invoices were sent on Monday, September 22nd. They're due February 1st of next year. We also sent this instructional notification letter to your contacts on your NICU directory with full instructions and support details. So if you didn't receive an invoice or this instructional email, please submit a help desk ticket and we can assist you. Next slide. Okay, so here are our achievements from 2024 data finalization. We want to commend all of you who worked so hard to enter and finalize this data. Many of you earned one or more of our data management awards. We had 370 total awardees, and the breakdown by award is shown in this lower part of the graphic on the right. We also want to thank everyone who completed our data finalization survey. We send the survey out after data finalization. We had 76% of our NICU membership represented in our responses, and your feedback showed that our data tools and communication efforts are working well, so we really appreciate that input. And we also got a lot of requests for information and suggestions in the survey. So our team is diligently following up to provide additional support over the next few weeks. So stay tuned for that. Next slide, please. We also want to recognize the NICUs that met at least one quality achievement goal this year. We track 3 key measures, and 84% of our NICUs met at least one of them, which is fantastic. The graphic on the right shows the announcement that your team may have received if you reached at least one goal. So we hope you shared this more broadly with your NICU and logged into the NICU Reports website to explore other measures where you performed well. If you haven't yet, we encourage you to check it out soon, maybe after this tutorial today. Now is a great time to review your finalized data from last year and see where you can improve ahead of the coming year. Next slide, please. So thank you for your hard work with data finalization. Now we're going to review the few database changes we have for 2026 data collection. Next slide. So for those who are newer, just a quick overview of eligibility in our 2 databases. Apologies for any duplication from our webinar 2 weeks ago. This is really important and we often get a lot of questions on this. So the higher acuity database includes detailed data on small babies, those who are less than or equal to 31 weeks gestational age or less than or equal to 1,500 grams. As well as larger babies who meet specific higher acuity criteria. These records require completion of either an admission discharge form or a delivery room death form, and then potentially a transport form if they are transported. The all NICU admissions database, on the other hand, includes all NICU infants that were admitted into your NICU. So this is both the higher acuity infants and also lower acuity. And the data collection form is much shorter. So these records are also used to populate the CCS form totals, and you can export this data to the higher acuity database. And Falani will show you how to do that later on. Next slide. Okay, so without further ado, here is a quick overview of our 2026 data updates. Of course, we'll be diving into what these mean in subsequent slides. So we have 5 updates this year. So first, in the all NICU admissions database, we're adding 3 items, and they're all optional. We have enteral feeding at discharge, first skin to skin, and hours from birth to priming with oral colostrum. These last 2 items come from our family-centered care optional opt-in pilot project, which was originally available in the higher acuity database for the last few years. And now we're moving these items so that they're available for everyone in the all NICU admissions database. And like I said, these three are all optional. And then in our higher acuity database for item 17C, we've added additional options for maternal obstetrical conditions, including anhydramnios and oligohydramnios. Those are bundled into one option, and then polyhydramnios. Okay, so let's now look into the details of each update. Next slide, please. So first up, we have the enteral feeding at discharge question. Like I mentioned, this is now going to be in the All NICU admissions database and will be collected in the disposition tab. Next slide. So just zooming in on this tab a little bit more, these response options are actually the same as the higher acuity database option number 56. So they include none, human milk only, formula only, human milk with fortifier or formula, as well as unknown. Next slide, please. So we have the technical definitions of each response option. Those are already available in the item 56 in the higher acuity database and manual definitions. But of course, because we're adding them to the ANAD, they will be found in our updated 2026 ANAD manual as well, which is coming soon. Next slide. Thank you. Okay, so our other two items that we're adding to our all NICU admissions database are, like I mentioned before, related to family-centered care. These are optional items that will be added to this second to last tab, formerly called ABX and Central Lines, and now FCC tab. It's highlighted in the red box up here. Okay, next slide. So just isolating the FCC items, as I mentioned previously, we will have days from NICU admission to first skin to skin at your hospital. So for this item, you can enter the number of days or specify the date. And if skin to skin didn't first occur in the NICU or it's unknown, you can check the appropriate box, either prior to NICU admission, never done here, or unknown. And then the second item in this box is hours from birth to first administration of colostrum at your hospital. And similar to the above, you can enter the number of hours or specify the date. And if the infant was never administered an oral colostrum at your hospital, you can check the box never done here. And if it's unknown, you can check unknown. We are very intentional of what we add to all of our databases, including the All NICU admissions database, and we're excited to add these measures to 2026. And as a reminder, they're not required. However, more and more we truly believe that family-centered care is a cornerstone of high-quality NICU care. Practices like skin-to-skin contact, parental involvement, and support from maternal milk have been shown to improve infant outcomes, support bonding, and reduce stress for both infants and their families. Capturing FCC measures across all NICU admissions helps us understand how widely these practices are being implemented across our network, identify opportunities for improvement, and provide evidence to guide quality initiatives that benefit every baby and family. So please reach out to us if your NICU needs support with collecting these items. So while they're optional, they are also encouraged. We just had this fabulous Moms uh, Quality Improvement Collaborative, where new NICUs who weren't previously participating in these FCC items learned how to collect them. So this information is, I know, fresh in terms of instruction and collection for a lot of NICUs. So we want to support maybe those of you who aren't currently practicing or collecting this information now. Okay, next slide, please. Now we're moving into the changes exclusively for the higher acuity database, and we just have this maternal obstetrical condition addition. So there's just two items that are being added. You can select yes for anhydramnios or oligohydramnios if the mother was diagnosed with either too little amniotic fluid in the uterus during pregnancy or a complete absence of amniotic fluid. And then additionally, you can select yes for polyhydramnios if the mother was diagnosed with excess amniotic fluid in the uterus during pregnancy. And then, of course, no if the mother was not diagnosed with these conditions or unknown if this information is not obtainable. So those are the only items that we're adding. Oh, next slide, please. We just have these 5 items. I think I've seen some questions come up in the chat, so I'll be sure to look at those questions now and answer them offline, and maybe we can discuss them at the end if we need to. So I'll next be passing the presentation to Fulani for an overview of NICU database tools.
Great. Thank you, Annalisa. Next slide. So appreciate you going over that overview. And hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining us. I'm going to share a few tools and tips for the NICU database that will hopefully make data entry a bit easier for you. Next slide. Okay, so our first and most important data tool is the closeout checklist. Annalisa alluded to this earlier. This tool can be accessed on the NICU data site to guide you through the closeout process. And there are 14 deliverables that are required to be completed by specific deadlines. So we encourage you to review it frequently and to make sure that you're on track. Next slide. And one of the most important and easiest tips is the pop-up window in the NICU data and the report sites. I know there's a tendency to close this window upon login, but we really ask you to take just a moment to read the information listed because all of it is directly tied to the data that's being entered. So that could be upcoming deadline, a new feature, or a database update. So again, just make sure to give this a look and make sure that you're not missing any important information. Next slide. And then once you've logged into the data site, you should see a page that looks much like this one. This is the home page, which also tends to get missed sometimes, but we ask that you take a moment to look at these bullet charts because it's an easy way to get a quick status snapshot of your data. The chart on the left represents your NICU, and the one on the right represents the network. The bar colors immediately give you an idea of what your status is. If it's green, you're on pace. If it's orange, you may be a bit behind. And if it's red, you might need to do some work to get back on track. And we can see that more clearly on the next slide. Okay, so these bullet charts are designed to show progress towards three goals in real time. Your target number represents the number of records you submitted in the previous closed out year in the higher acuity database. So that's the main NICU database. When you hover over the vertical bar, it gives you the number entered and the percentage of that number based on the number expected. So for instance, this NICU is behind pace for record completeness. And let's say they're reviewing these charts on March 15th in 2026. In the previous closed out year, 2025, they entered 330 records. They had 330 records, I should say, entered with a complete status around that same time. Now in 2026, real time, they have 181 records, which is about 54% of what's expected. So the expected number is the same as the target number, which again is the total number of records that was completed around the same time in the previous year. So this is just some quick but valuable information that gives you a brief status update of your NICU data. And for new members, or let's just say your target number is going to be different, we can reset that for you. You can send us a help desk ticket and we can reset that number if you know that your target number isn't going to be the same as last year, which in most cases may not be the case. Okay, next slide. So if you're one of the NICUs that might be a little behind pace in your data entry, and you want to catch up, I'd advise you to start with the All NICU Admits database. In many of my data reviews, the NAD is one of the first resources that I like to highlight as a starting place for data entry for the reasons that you see here. You can enter data by birth year or admission year. You can create a higher acuity admission discharge record or transport record directly from the database. For those of you collecting data on infants with maternal exposures, you can create those records here as well. Both forms or all forms can be created and pre-populated with any data that is currently existing in that ANAD record. And remember, you'll want to include records for all NICU admissions. So this includes both higher and lower acuity infants. Next slide. If you are planning to enter all your records in the ANAD first, you can do this by selecting the record for an infant that's eligible and then clicking the purple CPQCC NICU AD button, which is admission discharge button, which will take you to the main NICU database and open a new admission discharge form. The form will be pre-populated with all the values from the ANAD record, including the higher acuity ID number that you assigned. The first thing you'll see is a box that pops up to let you know that the record has been successfully created. Once you close that box, you can enter the additional values and save the record. Okay, next slide. So while we're in the admission discharge form, I wanted to share a tip on the demographics page. When you click on the wizard hat on this tab, it gives you the option of importing data for demographics, maternal history, delivery room death, and birth defects for an infant that was discharged home and then readmitted to your NICU. All you need to do is enter the previous NICU ID for the first admission for that same infant and click the go button, and those areas of the form will be populated with the data from that record. Okay. So I know that this is going to save a lot of people a lot of time for those infants that are readmitted after being discharged home. So please use that feature. Next slide. And another feature that I want to share, it's that same wizard hat, but this time it's on the maternal tab. This gives you a little bit different information. When you click on it here, it gives you the option of importing just the maternal history information for an infant that has a twin. So again, you're just going to enter the previous NICU ID number for that twin infant and then click the go button to populate this area of the form. Okay, next slide. But in case you've already started entering data in the main higher acuity database, there is a way to import them into the ANAD. When you click the CPQCC AD refresh button, a box pops up that looks like the one that you see here. So there are a few different steps that I'll walk you through to import these records correctly. The area outlined in green is very important if you already have a few records entered into the ANAD. This step won't add any new records, which is why when it's clicked, the above area in that yellow box area is unchecked, and the area below is ignored, as you see highlighted in blue within the green box. What it will do is add a higher acuity ID number for infants that meet the criteria. It will remove it from the records for infants that were entered for another birth year. So if it's in the wrong birth year, it'll remove it. And it'll replace it for records where an incorrect ID number was used. So once you've clicked the confirm button, you'll get a message that indicates how many records were updated. So you can do this process as often as needed to make sure that the higher acuity ID number that's assigned is the correct one, or removed completely for those infants that are not eligible. All right, so now let's focus on the top area boxed out in yellow. If you want to import new records from the higher acuity database into the ANAD, you can select the number format that you're currently using, and it will import those new records using that same format. If you want to update existing higher acuity records, you'll select the last radio button in that same boxed out area where it says, do not import new records, only update existing records. And note that this step will override whatever values are being pulled in. Okay, so now let's focus on that last part, the purple section. If you check the first box, you can import records that have all the required ANID items coded. And if you check the second or third box, you can import problems during NICU stay for new and existing records. So for any of these options, please make sure to click the Yes Confirm button to save and activate your selections. Okay, next slide. So just to clarify this a bit further, this snapshot shows you exactly what area of the ANAD record is being affected, which is the NICU admission discharge record. So for the green section, it's affecting this area that's boxed out in orange. And just remember that this step adds, removes, or replaces just this number, just this NICU AD record ID number for accuracy. Okay, next slide. So now we're taking a closer look at the top section when you're importing new records based on the number format that is selected. The last option in the same area will only do this for existing records. So what we're talking about is the reference number. It's pulling it in whatever format that you choose. Okay, next slide. And as you can see here, the last two options in the purple box import problems during NICU stay for new or existing ANAD records based on the NICU conditions that are found in the admission discharge forms. And you can find the crosswalk to see what those conditions are in section 11.16 of the ANAD manual. Okay, next slide. All right, so circling back to the ANAD, I want to touch on how you can begin to finalize and improve the quality of your data. So some of you may be familiar with the data quality scores that were listed in your closeout checklist last year. And you had some questions about how those scores were calculated and what was involved in the process of improving it. And while we don't have time to go through like all the items that are calculated for data quality, I'm hoping that these next few slides will help you, will clarify ways for you to improve it. So we're going to start with this red consistency check button. If this button is highlighted, not grayed out, it means that there are some inconsistencies in your ANAD data. And we'll take a closer look at this on the next slide. So once you click on that consistency check button, it takes you to a report that flags any possible inconsistencies between the ANAD and the higher acuity records that need to be resolved. So these could include things like conflicting information about the admission type. One record may say inborn and the other one may say outborn, so that needs to be fixed. There could be mismatched birth dates, higher acuity records that are missing from the ANAD that still need to be pulled in or added, or any other discrepancy that might pop up. So to make these edits or to make the updates to any of these areas, you're going to click on the Edit ID link to go directly into the record and resolve that issue. Okay, next slide. So the next important data quality check is to review any pending items, specifically in the CCS form, because it's important to make sure that all of these items that feed into the CCS form, which we'll talk about in a minute, are complete for finalizing your data. So to do this, click on the pending items and then select CCS form to review any missing or complete fields. Next slide. So once you run this query, you'll see the records that have been missing, that have missing items needed for the CCS form. And the most common issues are the ones you see here: missing birth weight, gestational age, admission date, and probably the biggest one is discharge date. So once you've reviewed and or resolved some of these items, and you can double click on any of these records to resolve them, you can click the reset button to get back to the main tab. Okay, next slide. So you can also review pending items for admission and discharge diagnoses that are marked incomplete or listed as other. In the case of other, we ask that you select a more specific diagnosis when possible, since it's being monitored by CCS. specifically for those LANA infants. Okay, next slide. And then when you're done reviewing and resolving some of these records, you can click on Core button to get back to the main table, and then reset if you want to exit out of the query. Okay, next slide. Okay, so once you've got your ANAD records all cleaned up and accurate, another important feature is its connection with the CCS form, which is what you see here. This form collects aggregated data for births, delivery room deaths, NICU admissions, transports, and a few other items like length of stay and antibiotics. There are a few tips I'd like to share when completing this form. And the first one is that button on the bottom right, labeled Show Values Based on NICU Admits Database. So when this button is clicked, you'll notice two things. Next slide. First, there's a second row of numbers that pop up below the entry boxes. The row above it, which is always there, represents the numbers that you entered into the higher acuity database. But the second row that you see boxed in represents the number of records that you entered into the ANAD for each weight group. The area that you see boxed in the bottom right gives you a few options on how you can populate this form. You can choose to populate the entire form or just parts of it. Once you've chosen that, you'll click the populate form with values based on NICU admits, which will populate the areas of the form that you chose with the numbers that you see in the second row. And then you'll click Save Form to save the entries. So this is one of the many benefits of entering data into the ANAD. It really makes completing this form a lot easier with just a click of a button. Okay, next slide. And if for some reason you decide that you want to reverse the populated data, you can do so by clicking the bottom button that you see boxed in here to restore the previous numbers, even after you've saved it. And if you also want to hide the ANAD row of numbers, you can click the Hide Values button right next to it. Okay, next slide. Okay, so we get a lot of questions about how to resolve the errors in the CCS form, which are usually represented by those red numbers that you all hate to see. So to better understand these errors, click the Check for Errors button, which will initiate the box that you see here. And then when you click the Yes Confirm, next slide, you'll see this other window that pops up that gives you a list of the errors with a short explanation for each one. So you have the option of printing this message for internal use or just closing the box once you've read through the list. Okay, next slide. And a similar box pops up when you click the Check Pending Items button. This gives you a list of items that are still pending in the form with the same options. So please make sure that to use all the available buttons, the resources, everything that I showed you here when completing the all NICU admits data, the higher acuity data, and the CCS form. You know, many of you are spending a lot of time entering all of this data, and we hope that these tips make the process easier for you and make it more efficient. But if you have any questions or there's something that you don't understand, you can always reach out to us via the help desk and we'll do our best to assist. Okay, next slide. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the CCS metrics table and how it relates to your CCS data, specifically for those LANA infants. Okay, next slide. The CCS comparison metrics table was created to provide data on specific metrics that CCS is currently looking at for the LANA infants, and that's the lower acuity inborn NICU admissions. In this table, you can get a sense of how your NICU is doing in those areas and how it compares to the network. Sometimes there are extreme values that can be found, which could trigger a letter from CCS to verify them. In previous years, we've received a lot of help desk tickets regarding these letters, and many of you were looking for explanations and how to determine whether the metric that was identified was indeed correct. So this report was created for that purpose. We developed this table along with CCS so that members could use it to look up the metric that was identified and verify its value. Next slide. So to find this table, you'll go to the NICU reports website and then go to the All NICU Admits Focus Boards. When you click on the right side dropdown, it should be the last option in the list. Okay, next slide. And when you click on it, this is what you'll see. You'll notice that at the very top, there are 4 buttons for population, birth year, comparison group, and metrics. The row below it shows the metric list, your NICU's percentage, the numerator and denominator for that metric, and then various ways that you can compare yourself to the overall network. So you would usually see data where you now see a purple box, but unfortunately we didn't have a demo version for this tool, so I couldn't share that part of it. But hopefully you do get the point by just looking at this graphic. So we encourage you to review this table to familiarize yourself with the data metrics, the comparisons, and the various ranges listed in the tables. If you have any questions about it, please submit a help desk ticket. We can walk you through it or answer any questions that you have. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Jessica, and she's going to go over some NICU database reporting tools.
Hi, thank you, Fulani. Good morning, or actually good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Jessica. I'm one of the biostatisticians here at CPQCC, and today I will be focusing on just a few items in the CPQCC reports. These include since Fulani was just going over it, the All NICU Admits Database Focus Board, where you can actually see and understand all of the data that you've entered, as well as a quick refresher of Baby Monitor. Next slide, please. Okay, first is, as you all just heard, the ANAD Admits Database, which is now available as a focus board on CPQCC reports. And like we just went through, it allows tracking of all NICU admissions. So not just your admissions under 28 days, but you could also track your admissions over 28 days. And again, LENA infants, for example. And a good reason to do this is that you can track your non-CPQCC eligible infant set affect your NICU resource use. So, and it is now required for all CCS, certified NICUs. Next slide. So I'm just going to first go through a few screenshots here, and then we will switch over and do like a quick live demo of the focus board. So when you first get to the ANAD focus board, you'll see this kind of home page here. The letter I button on the top left, I encourage all of you to always use that button on the CPQCC report site. There will be a lot of very detailed information on what is contained in each page, how each metric is calculated. We often get some questions about like, what are the denominators? That can all be found here. And especially for the ANAD focus board, there's also in this one, a link to a video that gives you a good explanation of the focus board. And I also did want to highlight the little tour button that Beata has built in. And again, I want to do a quick shout out and thank you to Beata Danielson, who really put all of this together along with all of CPQCC reports and CPQCC data. But she has now added this new tour function, which is that little teal button on the top. If you click through that, that will walk you through a very handy kind of like click through tour of each panel that is included in the ANAD focus board. So definitely take a quick minute to look at that as well. And then you'll have the 3 pie charts here at the bottom. These highlight the 3 top problems that occurred during stays in your particular NICU. And then at the bottom on this homepage are all of these different links to panels that you can explore. So for example, the one circled here is a summary of admit reasons or problems during your NICU stay. So let's take a quick look at that. Next slide, please. So when you click into that, you'll get a summary of all of the admit reasons to your NICU, and there's a bar at the top. This is such a customizable tool. It's really cool. You can change the display metric, you can change the year, you can change the population, you can change whether or not you're looking at the number of admits or mean NICU days. So it's actually super, I mean, there's just so many ways you could use this. And the little star here, if you go down the left side, you have the problems, and then there's a little plot which looks at the variation in these problems across all participating NICUs. And the little orange star represents where your particular NICU stands. And if next slide, please. If I click on one of the drop downs up top, one useful thing you can do here, which I've gotten a question about before, is to limit, you can actually limit this display. You can limit to all NICU admits, you can limit to just a lower acuity or just higher acuity, or inborn and outborn infants as well. And at the top right, there's actually another drop down, which you can actually change the display. So next slide, please. So if at the top right, you can actually select other displays. One of them that I'm going to show here is a heat map. This is a really cool one that is, I think, not often used. So I wanted to quickly highlight it here. A heat map is basically just a visual way of seeing all the problems or admission reasons for your particular NICU. The graphs are divided in two. The one on the left is for your particular NICU, and the one on the right is an average across all participating NICUs. So on this screenshot, the x-axis at the very bottom, it is split up by birth weight, and you can also change that up top to display by gestational age if you'd like. And there's a key, like the darker the color is the higher the number. So the higher the actual number of admits or mean NICU days. And excuse me. Just for a quick example, if you look on the left for your this particular demo NICU, for infants at the bottom, 2,500 to 4,000 grams, you had a total of 115 admissions with respiratory distress during their NICU stay. Whereas if you look on the right, the corresponding mean number of admissions with respiratory distress across all participating NICUs for the same birth weight group was 56. So for this particular demo center, they're definitely seeing quite a bit more numbers of admits with respiratory distress as compared to the other participating centers. So this can be a good way to look at these heat maps. Next slide, please. So this next slide is the same exact heat map. I've just changed the display with the drop-down menu up top to mean NICU days. I think this is a good way of looking at how much of your NICU resources are being used by certain admit reasons or problems. So, you can see clearly that events such as cardiac events, especially among very low birth weight infants, take up a lot of mean NICU days, obviously as expected. And this is a good way to also compare what are your mean NICU days as compared to all the rest of the participating centers. Okay, so at this point, I think let's switch on over to do a quick live demo. I'm going to ask Marcy to stop sharing, and then I'm going to pull up mine. Give me a second. Share my screen, and all right, there we go. So we are now on CPQCC NICU report site, And I'm going to start, since we were just talking about it, let me jump quickly to the all NICU admits focus board. Okay, so here is the homepage for this particular demo center that we're using. Again, if you see here, you have this handy tour up top where you can click and it'll actually show you, you know, some tips about how to use this particular focus board, which is very cool. That's definitely a very cool feature that I'm a fan of. So, and again, you can see the top 3 problems that occurred for this particular NICU. And let's quickly go to the admit reasons that we were just looking at, which is down here. Sorry, it's thinking. This one does take a little bit of time to calculate because it's a lot of data. Okay, so here we go. Here are all the admission reasons that we have in the ANAD. And as you can see, the little orange star, for example, is where this particular NICU stands for each particular problem. So for hypoglycemia, or for example, seizures, respiratory distress, how your NICU stands compared to all the other NICUs. And again, you can change, for example, you can change here. If I wanted to just look at higher acuity NICU admits, I could do that. I could change from percent of admits to mean NICU days. Or I could do, for example, comparisons with community NICUs or all participating NICUs. I'm going to jump over to another cool one, which is we just looked at the heat maps. Give that a second. Okay. So here we go for the heat maps again. Admission reasons, here I have them by birth weight. And I can always change that up here. You can do gestational age, which will change that up a bit. We can also limit to higher acuity or all NICU admits here. You can actually do the year all the way back to 2018. And we can either look at admit reasons or problems during the NICU stay. So again, the good thing to do here is to look at your own NICU, and also you can compare it to all other participating centers. So again, if we look at quickly at respiratory distress, this particular demo NICU is definitely showing many more admits due to respiratory distress rather compared to the other participating NICUs. All right, so in interest of time, I'm going to jump ahead. The next thing I wanted to demo and to just do a quick refresher on is, you all see the dashboard when you log in. Tons and tons of information. I really encourage everybody to take your time if you can. I know everyone's busy, but take your time to really explore this. If you scroll down, we have small babies, big babies, HRIF, infection control. And today I'm just going to focus on a particular metric. So we'll just look quickly at home on human milk nutrition, which is currently a pretty hot topic. This particular demo NICU is 75% of babies, small babies, home on human milk nutrition. And this little bar here is it's called a decile bar. It basically compares how you stand percentage or percentile wise compared to the rest of CPQCC. And I wanted to quickly highlight these quick look charts. If you just wanted a very quick demo of how you guys are doing for your NICU, here's all of your Vaughan infants. It'll show your denominators for each year, your numerators for each year. You can filter by gestational age. If I just wanted to look at super preemie under 24 weeks, if I wanted to look at 26 weeks, or a good one to look here is line. It gives you a kind of a rough trend of how you guys have been doing. And this particular NICU seems to be kind of jumping up and down in the last 10 years or so. And again, the book icon here gives you a quick definition. Well, sometimes not quick, a lot of text, but definitions again of how things are calculated. And lastly, something that we do get questions on, there's quick links here to control charts, risk-adjusted charts. And again, if there are any CPQCC resources such as toolkits available for this metric, they will also be linked here. And lastly, you can quickly access the CCS reports section for this particular metrics with this little, I guess, trophy thing right here. So if we look at the risk-adjusted trend table, I did want to highlight something that some of the biostats have gotten questions on before. You are able up here to look at what's called the trend table. This will show your hospital and how it is performing compared to what is expected. So for example, for this demo NICU, I know it seems like the numbers are small, so it's a little bit maybe not as good of an example, but you can see, for example, what is your observed percentage of discharge on breast milk? And then what is your expected, I guess, sorry, I have my screen small, so it's being expanded here. So you can see that for 2019, your hospital was expected to have 67.6 risk-adjusted percent of discharge on breast milk. And what you actually achieved was 87.5. So you are doing better than expected. And a good thing to look at is the risk-adjusted comparison chart. This will again give you a good picture of how your NICU stands compared to all other NICUs in the CPQCC network. You can also turn on community NICUs, you can look at the demo region, and you can turn those off by clicking, and this particular NICU is on the lower side and has some room for improvement. Okay, so that's one good thing I wanted to demonstrate. And lastly, before I end, I'm going to jump back to Baby Monitor. So Baby Monitor is something we haven't gone through in a while. As a very, very, very quick, excuse me, as a very quick summary, Baby Monitor is a composite score, which is like a score that is an average of 9 quality outcomes. And this was the work of, 10 years of work by Dr. Profit to put this together. And these outcomes include both process and outcome measures. And the scores are standardized. This means that you can easily compare scores across NICUs to see how you're doing in terms of quality of care in your NICU. So if you see here, if you see a positive score, that means you're doing better than expected. If you see a negative score, then you're doing worse than expected. How that translates to this particular display is that, for example, for this demo NICU, if you see growth, it's highlighted in red. Red means that they are doing not as well as expected, significantly worse than expected. And if you do ever see green highlighted in a particular metric, it means you're doing a lot better than expected. And for this particular demo NICU, you can click here for your composite score, which is kind of like your percentile compared to the rest of the NICUs. So if you quickly click here, you'll see where your NICU stands on this measure of composite quality of care compared to the other NICUs. And if you X out of that, you can actually further look at every single individual outcome. So again, human milk nutrition for this particular NICU, they're standing kind of a little bit under what's like a little bit not as well as could be done. There is room for improvement here. And again, all of these charts for Baby Monitor can be filtered by the most current 3 years, most recent 5 years. You can also limit by inborn and outborn. And currently these numbers are calculated every single month after the 10th of each month. So they are being updated somewhat real time, but you do have to enter your data in order to get more real-time data as well. And that's going to be it for me today. I just want to thank you all for giving me a chance to talk to all of you. And if you have any questions on any of these reports, just submit a help ticket. The data center and the biostats are always here to answer your questions. All right, I'll turn it over to Henry.
Everyone. It's just the last bit before the Q&A. I wanted to present a tool for prognosis estimation for periviable birth, which refers to babies born 22 to 25 weeks. And some of you may be familiar with this tool we had developed over the past few years. Go to the next slide. And we had reached out to individual units with this tool to sign up and register because we do have the ability to use your data from your center to weight the estimate of prognosis, which uses all of the CPQCC data over the past few years. So it's a timely sort of tool. It uses either from 3 to 5 years worth of the data for CPQCC. And then if your center is large enough to have enough babies, then it will weight it toward your population. So the address is there. You could see cpqccreport.org periviable. And it's now just available for general use, and this will use just all the CPQCC data. I will note that if you still want to register so that you can have individual site weighted data, when you go to this page, there will be an email, Kristen Schaefer, that you can email to then get the instructions to register to get your individual data estimate, and you'll get a unique web link that you can save and bookmark, which then you can use whenever you want to plug in some numbers. We can go to the next slide. So when you first go to this, okay, here's the email. You can email me too, if and I can help you to get the instructions to again get the individual center-based estimates. Okay, so this is the tool itself, and this is actually, I think, the page that will pop up, and it actually does also show up pretty well on your phone if you're using it there. And basically on the left side, you see the plugging in of the various variables. And it's basically 5 variables. And you may be familiar that NICHD has a similar tool, but we use sort of our modeling and refine our estimates to use our data and with a good model. And you don't need weight, which you need for NICHD, but here we have IUGR and the gestational age in weeks and days. And so then you'll get an estimate of the prognosis of survival. That's the middle one, and then the survival without major morbidity. And in case it's a situation where the team is counseling a family, it gives you sort of a range across the week of the change in the prognosis estimate. The survival without major morbidity is the one that is defined through CPQCC, and then in the background, it has some of those definitions. We do not yet have the ability to do something like longer term outcomes as of yet. That is it. So hope you, and then I think we have now implemented a brief survey tool, and that's completely optional if you want to just plug in any feedback on the tool there when you use it. All right, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Henry. And thank you so much, Jessica, for going over the reports. Appreciate you both. All right, so now we're entering our Q&A session, and I know you guys have already been pretty active in the Q&A, so hopefully we've been answering your questions. If you have further questions, please go ahead and put them there, and we'll do our best to answer them. So from what we've seen already, it looks like a lot of the questions have been answered, but we can go over a few of them in case, those of you have similar questions. Just scrolling up here. One of the questions is, will the NAD optional items become required in the future? That really just depends on how things go. We don't know how it'll be received for the first year or two. So we'll see how that goes. And, we're not going to just pop it on you and surprise you with, hey, these are now required. We'll definitely, um, do some analysis and then check in with our usual channels, DCAG being one of them, our data committee advisory group. We usually run things through them before we make anything required. So right now they are optional and they will stay as such for the foreseeable future. I see there are some questions about skin to skin. If there's 25 hours, would we enter 2 or enter 1? Let me, if you could pop that into a help desk question, it- so that we can take a look at that. I don't know right off what would be the best answer for that. But if you could, well, let me show all 4, maybe above 24 hours would be day 2 of life. Okay, thank you, Annalisa. You've already answered that question. So thank you, Jessica and Annalisa, for jumping on there. If we get a baby transferred to us at 2 weeks and we don't have the information, do we just put unknown? Yes. If you don't have the information, go ahead and put unknown. He is asking for the 2026 manuals and the materials. We will be getting that out hopefully within the next month or so, hopefully even earlier than that. So, but we will send out an announcement letting folks know when those 2026 materials are available, including the 2025 data finalization guidelines. Okay. What if babies are readmitted from another hospital? So for readmissions, there are certain items that you would update 23, 25 through 27 and 29 through 56, just to show what happened at the other hospital. So you would make those updates in your NICU record, and then you would, follow along as far as follow the baby as far as disposition, fill in the disposition information after that. Okay. Let's scroll down. The webinar will be available as a recording soon. Probably, I would say around maybe next week. Let's see. For infants that are transported out and readmitted, yeah, you would have to follow it. So you're following the infant basically up until the ultimate disposition at your NICU. So if a baby is readmitted, again, there's certain items that you would update, and you would see that on the admission discharge form as well. Once you put readmitted, it will tell you, what items you need to update, and then you'll put in whatever happened after that. If it's transferred to another hospital, you would put that in, but then you would need to keep in contact with that hospital to see what happens after that baby went there, whether it went home or transported out again to another hospital. Okay. Specific questions about graft type. So Annalisa, thank you for showing the steps on that. No changes on CPETs this year, and we apologize that we weren't able to have that. We are thinking of possibly doing a Q&A session depending on availability, maybe sometime next year. And I know that, we packed a lot into this this 1-hour show. So if you still have questions about the ANAD, the connection between it and the CCS form, or any of the things that we shared today, we can walk you through that. If you want a one-on-one with you yourself or you and your team, we can definitely schedule that and kind of walk you through it using your own data and how to use these tools and these different features. Okay. Great. think I've gone through everything. Is there anything that I'm missing? And Lisa or others? Otherwise, we'll get into the closing. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. And if there's further questions, please go ahead and add them. And we'll get back to that. But while we're kind of waiting for those to come in, we'll get to the next slide. So thank you again for all of you attending today's webinar. Next slide. And I wanted to say thank you also to our panelists, Dr. Lee and Jessica and Annalisa. You all did a great job. You were awesome. Thank you, Marcy, for running the slides behind the scenes. Appreciate you. But before we wrap this up and let you all go, once you've logged off from this webinar, you should see a page with a survey link for today's event. So please click that link. Give us your feedback. We use that information to inform us for the next year's webinars. So please give us your feedback. CEUs will be sent out at the end of all the sessions for live session attendees only, and make sure you complete that survey in order to get those CEUs. And we'll be sharing all the recordings and the materials at the end of the session as well. Next slide. So our next section and last section session of the series is coming up on Wednesday next week, October 22nd. It's all about high-risk infancy follow-up. This will be presented by Dr. Susan Hintz and Erica Gray. So again, to maximize that participation at this event, please make sure that you have access to your HRIF database. If you need help doing so, please submit a ticket to our help desk and we'll do our best to get you access. And if you have any other questions about HRIF or just today's session as well, we'll do our best to get you the answers to that as well. Next slide. All right, so thank you very much. I'm looking at the Q&A to see if there are any others before I let you all go. Thank you, this was helpful. Sorry, no CMEs, just CEUs. Sorry about that, but hopefully you can take advantage of the CEUs. If a baby is transported to a higher level of care and not readmitted back to us, we're going to update the numbers. If it's not readmitted back, then no, you wouldn't update those numbers. That's just for readmission. So if it's transported, all you're going to look for is that ultimate disposition, what happened after transport, and then update the ultimate disposition. Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you all as well. And please have a great day. I appreciate that you all joined us today, and hopefully we gave you a lot of valuable information that you can take back to your teams and use as you use our different platforms. So thank you again, and have a great day, everybody.